Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Awesome. 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 Sorry for being a little bit late. So we'll just get straight to it and we'll go from the order of the number who called first. Let me see.
Muted. Unmuted.
All right. 267-266.
How you doing, Mr. Muhammad?
Hey, I'm doing all right.
All right. So my first question is, I watched the GSA bonds video. Does a person? I heard you say in there that person that you helped didn't have that wasn't a national or anything. So now, does the person have to basically say like does that? Do you have to have gone through the process in order to like use them for like bills or getting out of jail, or can the average man use them as well for the like getting out of jail and stuff like that?
The
Or you
average
got to
man
have everything set up?
the average man can do it, but you have to keep in mind the GSA requires you to attach a certified copy or an authenticated version of the birth certificate. So in the case of it being hit and miss, the GSA, when you actually get certain things done when it comes to what people do with the birth certificate, authenticating, putting in trust, it actually buffers it and increase the odds rather than you having to wait every 90-day cycle. Because the reason most people want to do GSA for jail is because they want to get out of there as soon as possible. They don't want to be around all those other people. So a 90 days might be eternity. So the everyday man can do it, but it lessens the chance. But when someone authenticates it, it actually shows interest in a monetary value, which implores them to actually act quicker.
Okay, so basically you'll be able to do it in like faster than 90 days.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay. My second question is, if you are arrested before you can do the process, what should you not do while in their custody, and what should you sign and not sign? And how do you navigate that process? Like, can you still like reserve your rights and do like the rescind your signature after you bond out?
Okay. So when it comes to being in there and signing anything, there are lists of documents they will have you sign. One would be basically to give your inventory to, if it's the sheriff or whatever, to hold it, and then after a certain day they can dispose of it or give it to anyone who come picks it up. All those mundane stuff you can sign, but the most important thing that they will have you sign is a document that is it's always rectangular, always, no matter what state. And in some case, it's still attached to the paper tail before they tear it off. So in essence, it's really just a coupon. But that coupon is what the bondsman who invest in the jails people, they use and attach to every other monetary liability. That bond basically in the back of it in small print says that you, the one who's been bonded by it, is attached to the court and the jail, and you're authorizing them to do anything they want with you. That is the only thing that you probably should not sign, because if one signs that and one intends to then retroactively do a GSA, what would happen is the first in time, first in line lien holder, that's a form of lien that you're consenting to against your physical body. What would happen is if you start to do the GSA, it will be based on their discretion now, because now you basically handed yourself to them. Because remember, the GSA is basically each of those cells are housing units. That's the term that they use for it. They're housing people, like they're basically your parents. And what that GSA is doing, it's buying that cell or that bed back to whoever the interest holder is, or whoever's acting as an authorized person in the SF 181 form that you notarized. When you buy that block
Okay.
or that cell, if you have predominantly signed that slip, what they would then do is just switch you to another cell or another block or another bed. So it just makes it harder. You can sign everything else, but that specific slip that basically confers your body to them is the only one that you should refuse to. Because at the end of the day, even if you refuse to do it, they're still going to process you nonetheless. But don't sign that. And if it's a place like New York, which is very known to be notorious because they run things way more obvious as a mafia. In that case, they might want to actually whoop people's ass. And situations and places like that do exist. One of those is also Cook County. They're used to doing it so much, so they will want to basically beat you to submission. If that's the case, then reserve your right. But if you are not placed under physical duress, then just refuse to sign it, and they will put refused on it.
Okay, and you said that's a bond with a coupon at the bottom, basically.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, last question. What is the significance of the Securities Act of 33 if the securities are not regulated based off of the Graham-Leach-Bailey Act that was repealed? That repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, which was two sections from the Banking Act of 33 as well.
Mm-hmm. So the purpose of the Banking Act and Investment Act is to basically, in summary, say that we know that we're making a lot of money, and it's based on the full faith of the people. And the people themselves are the ones who own the property, which is the real asset to which all the derivatives and the bonds, they call the CDO, when they bundle it together. All those pieces of paper are just certification that an asset exists and is held by someone, which is the everyday man. Since we know that the everyday man is the one who actually owns that hard asset, if they figure it out at any point, they can hold us liable. So what we'll do is we will deregulate it so that once they start to step into the hierarchies of liability, we cannot be held liable for making money for what they are rightfully owed. What they're rightfully owed is the return of investment that they're basically gambling in the market, but the everyday man is not getting it. Instead, the everyday man is giving them premium as a fee for them. All those monthly mortgage are just premium fees for the investors to use to gamble. And then when they make money, they're gonna give it to you. So those act is basically saying we're not held liable, but we put exceptions in it whereby if the everyday man wants to basically take their interest, they can also. Because if they just create the Investment Act and the Securities Act that only benefits them, then that's a whole nother issue. But their purpose ultimately for deregulating it based on what we spoke about in the consultation and then implementing it into those Securities Act is so that you, the everyday man, could come in and take what is yours. That's the part most people don't know. It's an open door for you, which when you do it, they cease to be liable, because ultimately what would happen is they will be the one partner for you, whereby before they just use that as legas and they don't give you anything. That's where you are merely the holder and they become the holder in due course. When you begin to use exemptions in those acts, you become the holder in due course and flip the position and make them merely the holders of the CDOs, and you being in due course of the benefits to monetary liability. That's why you do your trust.
Okay.
To take those steps.
So that's why they put the otherwise at the end of the intent. That otherwise is the exceptions, basically, that you say benefits the person. Okay.
Yeah. So that it's always a way out for you. A way out for you is a way out for them.
Oh, okay. That's clever. Thank you.
Right. Take care. All right.
Yeah.
Let me go to the next earliest caller, which was 315-857.
Good afternoon, Mohammed. This is David.
Hey, Dave, what's going on?
Not too much. All right, so just get right into it. With having an express trust, what position or hat should I wear? And then what book really teaches a person how to navigate or use or structure the trust?
If you're trying to use the express trust in a court case, which I assume is dealing with child support things, if that's the case,
yes,
your best position is to act as something called authorized person. Now, you, Dave, can still be the grantor, but the beneficiary in your situation should be your children, because all the state executive department and their contractors are all trusts, and they all have operating agreements to act as debt collectors and to act as administrative adjudicator, which is a child support court. The issue here is they have their own trust and they're administering it supposedly in the benefit of two people. The two people is your children And secondly, the people of the state of so and so, because your children and you are presumed to be part of the state of whatever, whatever, which all the child support court hides under through close corporation. So what you have to do now is to bring your trust and make your children the beneficiary if you're using a child support. And then you'll create a trust minute that designates you as an authorized person to handle the affairs through anything that has any interference with the beneficial interest of your children. That's the capacity and the best capacity. The second part of that question, which is what books do you read? The books that you can read, I've uploaded it in the past during the earlier portion of Patreon, but I'll compile all the trust books that I know are easy to read, and I'll post it as an image. But the earliest and the most common one people see is Wise Concise Trustee Handbook. But Wise Concise Trustee Handbook only tells you in summary that express trust can be used in business like any other thing in summary. It does not go into the details of how to use it in court, how to organize it, and really how to actually, when things get hot, how to actually maneuver it. How you do that is embedded into the CFR codes, part of it being how you structure the form of trustee, which you've spoken of. The other part is how you actually, in your case, since you're using it for court, what you have to focus on is how court works. Believe it or not, that's your core. See, the trust itself is just the beginning point. How you actually use it is actually in how court works. You asked a question on Patreon regarding the rights and obligation of contract. Did you actually understand the response, or do you need a bit of a clarity, because it links to the first question you're asking?
A little bit of clarity, please.
Okay. Remember that each state are trusts. And this whole thing with children or money garnishment, whatever it is that they're doing relating to the assumption that they're helping your children, all that is funneled through trust shelter. And that can only exist where and when you have a contract that allows them to do so. This thing called, or the clause called rights and obligation of contract, it's not necessarily the contract itself, is your right to it. And your right to contract is twofold. First is any obligation that anyone says you are to do. The only way any obligation comes into case is if you did enter into the contract. Some people, they enter into child support related contract because it's linked to some child support. It's linked to some divorce related matter. And that kind of links to taking care of the children. Some people, they independently sign it. Most people actually have signed something, either through a court order or through just consent of some divorce attorney. That is the contract that is abrogating your right to take care of your child and to be preserved in your papers, in effect, called your money, that they're taking out constantly. What you have to look at in order to evoke the right to any type of obligation, to any kind of contract, private or public, is how did you enter into it? Did you enter into it with your full knowledge of how it affects you? The term for that is called conscionable contract. Otherwise, it's a unilateral contract, meaning it only favors someone one way. It's like having a conversation and you're saying something to that man or woman, and they just wait for you to finish talking and they just say whatever they say. That's a unilateral thing. Contracts are not meant to work that way. It's supposed to be for the benefit of everyone. And on the note of obligation of contract, if you're giving monies out through some third party that's supposed to be going to the state of so-and-so or your child, how are they actually helping your child with that money they're taking out from you? That's the second thing you want to look at. And whether what you signed one way or the other has that language in it. And three is that the adjudication that played a role in saying, hey, here's a court order that you are to give so-and-so this amount monthly, and this will be the debt collector. That court itself, what is their capacity and their ability according to the Constitution to say that you can do so? And that ties back to the last video, which you asked the question under, which is basically that debt is slavery. Debt is slavery because someone is saying, if you don't do this, we'll take your money. Otherwise, we'll throw you in jail. New Jersey actually has a language in the Constitution that says that you cannot be thrown in jail for depth. So you can link. Hey, I'm inviting you to come join the patron page. Not only do you get access to documents, posts, and videos that you will never find on any other platforms, you also get instant access to webinars that otherwise will cost far more. And we speak of things that usually we would not be able to speak of on any other platforms far more freely. On top of that, you get the opportunity to send me monthly questions.